In 2026, prosecutors in Las Vegas charged Floyd Mayweather with 2 felonies over a $200,000 check that bounced. He had used it to buy a single watch, and the money was not there. Around the same time, the IRS filed a $7.3 million tax lien against him. A Miami jeweler sued him for $1.4 million in unpaid watches and chains. His New York landlord sued him for $330,000 in unpaid rent on a condo he had leased 7 months earlier. A private jet company sued him for a flight worth over $105,000 that he never paid for. Now hold all of that against one number. Floyd Mayweather earned more than $1.1 billion inside a boxing ring. He is the highest paid fighter who has ever lived. Those two sets of facts are not a contradiction. They are the same story. And once you understand how that story was built, you will never hear the word billionaire the same way again. To see how a man ends up here, you have to start with the size of the money that moved through his hands, because the number is almost impossible to hold in your head. More than $1 billion across 50 professional fights from 1996 to his last sanctioned bout. That is more than LeBron James has earned across an entire NBA career. It is more than several small nations produce in a year. One man, one sport, and most of it arrived in a handful of nights. In May 2015, Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao in a bout billed as the fight of the century. It generated over $600 million in total revenue and 4.6 million pay-per-view buys, the most in the history of the sport. Mayweather's cut was roughly $250 million for 36 minutes of work, that is about $7 million a minute. The average American household earned $7 million across an entire lifetime. Mayweather made it between rounds. 2 years later, he fought Conor McGregor and took home over $260 million more. So if the money was that enormous, the obvious question is where it went. But that question is the wrong one. The real question is, why so little of it was ever his to begin with? Here's where it gets interesting, because $250 million is not $250 million. Not once you run the math on what the boxing business actually looks like behind the promotional posters. A fighter of Mayweather's level negotiates a purse. That purse is cut by the promoter, historically anywhere from 10 to 33%. The manager takes a slice, the trainer takes another. Then comes federal tax at the highest bracket. Before Mayweather spends a single dollar on anything he actually wants, the $250 million has already shrunk hard. And exactly how hard depends on the deal structures, which brings us to the part of this story that stayed buried for 15 years. In February 2026, Mayweather filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles claiming that $340 million of his own money was missing. The filing names Showtime Networks and its former sports president, Stephen Espinoza. It alleges that for over 15 years, Mayweather's own manager and advisor, Al Heyman, ran what the suit calls an elaborate scheme of financial fraud, routing fight earnings into accounts Mayweather did not control. And it gets worse than a spreadsheet dispute. The suit claims revenue from the Pacquiao fight, the most lucrative event in boxing history, was used like a slush fund to pay for unrelated costs. When his new team asked Showtime for the financial records to trace the money, they were reportedly told the records had been lost in a flood. Hundreds of millions of dollars in accounting gone, apparently, to water damage. Whether that lawsuit wins is for a court to decide, and Showtime's parent company has called the claims baseless. But sit with the uncomfortable question underneath it. How does the man who branded himself Money Mayweather for 20 years not know where his own money is? And here is the detail that makes the whole thing click into place. For years there have been reports, including from people who worked closely with him, that Mayweather struggles to read. That is not an insult. It is the mechanical explanation for how a man can sign contracts for hundreds of millions of dollars and never be able to check what they actually say. If those reports are accurate, the highest earner in sports history was for decades unable to audit the people auditing him. Set the contracts aside for a second, because even if every dollar had been counted honestly, the machine was already designed to bleed. And the size of that machine is the part almost nobody talks about. They called it the Money Team. At its peak, Mayweather's entourage ran into the dozens on any given fight week. Permanent staff, security, chefs, stylists, assistants, childhood friends, family, all housed, all fed, all paid, all flying. His own assistant, Tasha Robinson White, later wrote a book about the experience. She described a man who bought cars the way most of us buy eggs, 12 at a time. She said he kept $125 million in cash in a checking account. And she said his staff routinely went months without being paid because Mayweather's answer to a late paycheck was to buy everyone Rolexes instead. Think about what that actually means. That is a payroll, not a lifestyle. And a payroll does not care whether Floyd has a fight booked or not. It runs every single month, fight or no fight. So the jets and the watches and the Bugattis, the things you could actually see, those were never the real problem. They were a hobby sitting on top of the overhead. The overhead was invisible, it was enormous, and it needed him to keep climbing into a ring forever to feed it, which sets up the one arena where his genius completely failed him, and it is almost too perfect. Floyd Mayweather is, by his own account, one of the most confident gamblers in professional sport. He bets on basketball. He bets on football. He posts betting slips worth millions of dollars on single games straight to social media. He has reportedly wagered around $10 million on a single NFL result. And here's the trick your brain misses. He only ever shows you the winners. The tickets that hit go straight to Instagram. The tickets that lose quietly disappear. In a boxing ring, Mayweather was the house, and the house always wins. In a sports book, he was just another customer, and the customer always loses over time. A casino is built on exactly that math. If you are getting something out of how this money actually moved, take a second and subscribe, because I break down the mechanics of wealth that most people never get to see. Now let's talk about the government, because the government has been chasing Floyd Mayweather for a very long time. The IRS problem is not new, and that is the point. Go back to 2008, when Mayweather was scammed out of $15 million by someone inside his own circle, then had $7 million in cash and jewelry stolen from his Las Vegas home, then got hit by the IRS for over $6 million in unpaid tax. Roughly $28 million gone in about 6 months. It nearly wiped out everything he had earned to that point, and it forced him out of retirement just to pay the bills. Then Pacquiao and McGregor bailed him out. He settled a $22.2 million tax bill on his 2015 earnings. He was ordered to pay $5.5 million plus a $1.1 million penalty on his 2017 taxes. Each time the pattern was identical. Spend, get hit with a bill, fight someone, pay it off, repeat. But there is one fatal flaw in that model, and in 2026, it finally arrived. Eventually you stop fighting, and the bills do not stop. In March 2026, the IRS filed a $7.3 million federal lien against him for unpaid taxes from 2018 and 2023, recorded in Las Vegas for anyone to look up. The full amount remains unpaid. And the agency added a threat that changes everything for him. It notified Mayweather that it intends to ask the State Department to revoke his passport. For a man whose only remaining income comes from fighting exhibitions in Dubai and Japan and Greece, losing his passport does not just embarrass him, it switches off the tap. So think about what that means. The man who earned more than $1.1 billion does not appear to have $7.3 million in accessible cash lying around. That is the sentence that deserves a moment. And this is where the story turns genuinely bleak, because you can watch the verdict play out in real time. Mayweather is now in his late 40s, and the fights he is taking tell you everything. He fought Pacquiao for legacy. He fought McGregor for legacy. But flying to fight in an exhibition in Dubai, or lining up an announced exhibition against a 59-year-old Mike Tyson, is not about legacy. There is no belt, no ranking, no sanctioning body. These are cash generation events and nothing else. The man who made $250 million in one night in Las Vegas is now chasing exhibition purses across the world because he needs the money. In 2015, that sentence would have sounded insane. In 2026, it is the only explanation that fits. And behind the exhibitions, the fire sale had already started. Reports surfaced that Mayweather had sold his private jet, his Beverly Hills mansion, and his Miami mansion to raise cash. His Las Vegas properties were reportedly used as collateral for debt owed to a financier. 2 condos he owned at the Trump Las Vegas residences were briefly seized over unpaid property taxes before he paid to get them back. This is not the footprint of a careless billionaire. It is the footprint of a man who cannot reach money that, on paper, he should have. And then there is the detail that tells the whole story in a single image. In the same week records showed his Beverly Hills mansion had sold, Mayweather posted a photo on Instagram, sitting on a private jet, surrounded by stacks of cash, captioned "Another day at the office." The brand never stopped performing, even as the math underneath it fell apart, because the brand was always the trap. Every stack of hundreds, every diamond watch, every garage full of supercars existed to send one message: I am money. And for years, that image generated fights, and the fights generated money, and the money funded the image, until the day it didn't. So here's the actual story, and it was never really about spending, it was about structure. Mayweather generated more than $1 billion, and every single dollar of it required his body to walk into a ring. He built a cost machine, entourage, lifestyle, tax, promotion that demanded that money keep coming forever. He trusted a layer of handlers who, if his own lawsuit is right, were pulling from the pile before it ever reached him. He gambled with whatever was left, and he built nothing underneath it. No passive income, no investment base, no assets throwing off returns, whether he fought or not. The result is not a man who wasted a fortune. It is a machine engineered, from the very first bell, to turn $1 billion in earnings into nothing kept. He called himself Money Mayweather for 20 years, and the name was more honest than he ever meant it to be. He was not money. He was the thing money passed through. From the pay-per-view buys, to the promoters, to the IRS, to the sports books, to an entourage that needed him to keep bleeding. Earning money and keeping money are 2 completely different skills. He was the greatest in history at the first one. And the gap between the 2 is exactly where $1 billion vanished. Subscribe if you are not already, because I break down the mechanics of wealth that almost nobody ever shows you. And if you want to see what happens when these exact habits collide with a $300 million super yacht, that video is on screen right now.